Destination, Black Point Lava Flow, Arizona. 2010, Desert Rats.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Arizona Desert. My name is Heather Paul with NASA's Desert Research and Technology Studies Field Testing. We have a very exciting program for you today. I can't wait to show you all of the fantastic things that NASA is doing to get us ready for future exploration. Now, we're here in Arizona, and this is our 13th year bringing out a team of NASA scientists, engineers, and astronauts to the field to work together as a team to figure out how we're going to do exploration traverses, what kinds of science exploration activities do we need to do, and how are we going to live on something like a 14-day traverse. Well, that's exactly what you're going to learn about today. And I'd like to welcome all of you to our program, and specifically those of you watching from the AIAA Space 2010 conference. I can't wait to talk to all of you. Now, we're going to be taking questions live, so make sure that you are texting in your questions, sending them in through our social media sites, because I'm going to be talking to you guys live during this program, and we have some subject matter experts, some actual field engineers who are going to be talking to us as well. Now, what we're doing out here is we're here for our 13th year, as I mentioned, and we've got 2 space exploration vehicles, or rovers, out here working simultaneously with an astronaut and a geologist, living inside of the vehicle for 7 to 14 days at a time. And during the day, they're driving a course that we preset for them, and along the way making stops, and they're doing extravehicular activities or spacewalks, where they're working with our mission control team right here at base camp. And we're going to be talking back and forth with the crew throughout their exploration activities to figure out what kinds of science we need to look at. They're evaluating the geology. As we're standing here at Black Point Lava Flow, there's a lot of great geology science that we're doing out here to train our astronauts and crew members for what we think they'd be doing on the surface of the Moon, the Mars, or some other area. So we've also got the Triathlete, which is a heavy lift vehicle, and you're going to see a lot more about that in just a few minutes. And then, of course, we're testing out our habitat environment. How are we going to live while we're working on the surface of a future exploration mission like this? How are we going to live and work together as a team? So I hear that Amanda has talked to 2 of our crew members, 2 of our geology science experts that are working with us today. So let's see what Amanda did when she talked with Jim Rice and Jake Bleacher.
Okay, thank you, Heather, very much. So today I'm out in the deserts of northern Arizona with Jim Rice and Jake Bleacher. They're getting ready to go on their 7-day mission. So what exactly is it that you're hoping to accomplish during this mission?
Well, we have a series of technology tests and demonstrations here with the hardware like the rovers and other assets that have been built at various NASA centers. From the scientist perspective, we're really interested in how dual rover operations go. So we've never done an operation with 2 rovers and 4 crew members at the same time. So we're testing several different communication scenarios and different scenarios with using the rovers. So do they go together, or do they separate and go different directions? And how does that best enable us to do the science that we want to do on another planetary surface?
Why exactly is it important that we have a geologist out here on this mission?
That's a good question. I mean, when we go to any planetary surface, we're going to do field geology when we go there. That's the prime science driver. And I think one geologist has to be involved in one of these missions wherever we're going at least. We're the people who can make the expert calls on the geology there, and based on our traverse plans, and if we need to make any changes to that. If we see something more interesting that didn't see from the remote sensing data, we're on the ground, and our experience of doing field work comes to value there.
You're going to eat, live, sleep out there, right?
Not at all. Stay in there except to go out on EVAs. That's our home away from home.
EVAs meaning spacewalks, kind of?
Well, these are simulated moonwalks. It's supposed to be a moon mission, or it could be a mission anywhere to the surface, Mars, asteroid, or whatever.
So have a great traverse, and we'll see you on the other side.
All right, thanks a lot.
Team. Andrew, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day in the desert.
It is a gorgeous day out here. So tell me, we're on mission day 2. How's the mission going?
Very well so far. The rovers are working just fine, and everybody's working out the few kinks and no major problems whatsoever. So very happy.
That's awesome news. I was out there yesterday and it was incredible. So why do we have 2 rovers this year? Last year we only had 1, so what's the difference?
Yeah, that's right. So, we're using Desert Rats here as the big kind of test bed for our the development of the SEV vehicles. And the SEV concept is actually a pair of vehicles, each serving as a backup to the other. And so this is the first year that we've actually tried to plan and execute these exploration traverses in the desert behind us, where we operate these vehicles so that they are always able to be a backup to the other. So even when they're off exploring on one lava flow, they're still able to rescue the other. They're maintaining communications, and there's a lot of complexity that comes when you're trying to operate 2 of these vehicles at the same time. It's not just twice as hard as operating one, it's a lot more difficult than that. So we're trying to understand the effect of the separation between the vehicles, and also the effect of the amount of communication between the vehicles and the support center here, and seeing how that affects the productivity and the efficiency of the exploration that they're doing.
So why 2 crew members in each vehicle?
Well, so the future exploration missions, we expect right now to have a total crew of 4, and rather than having one larger vehicle with four crew living in it all the time, what happens if you just have that one vehicle is every single system on that vehicle has to have a lot of redundancy, a lot of backups, so that if something goes wrong, the vehicle still works and the crew are alive and can still come back home. If you have 2 vehicles, then what that means is that if something goes really badly wrong, you always have a whole other vehicle. And so that what we call kind of functional redundancy. So you're always making use of this backup, and if the worst comes to the worst, everyone just piles into it. It'll be a little more cramped, but if it's keeping you alive, then you'll make do with a smaller vehicle for a little bit of time.
Keeping you alive, that seems like that's a pretty important part of exploration missions.
That's pretty high on most astronauts' priority list, I think.
But we're also doing a lot of science out here too, right?
That's right, yeah. And actually, we've been trying to, for the 3 years or so that we've been developing the SEV concept, we've been engaging the science community as well as the astronaut crew members right from the outset, so that we understand, rather than going off and designing what we as engineers think is a great rover, and then showing it to them just before we fly it in space, and they say, well, this does nothing that I want it to do. And we've involved the scientists from the outset so that they can tell us that, hey, we need this vehicle to be able to do these things, and as impressive as your little engineering gadget there is, that doesn't help us do science. So we've got a whole army of scientists here from from NASA and from universities around the country, and some international scientists too. So they're helping us design a vehicle that's optimized for science.
Very cool. Well, hey, guess what? We're taking live questions during our program,
All right.
and I just got one. We've got a question from Warren in Anaheim, and he's asking you, how will the SEVs be powered on the lunar surface or Mars?
So the plan right now is whether it's on the lunar surface or Mars, or even a near-Earth object, which is another possibility for these vehicles. They wouldn't have wheels, but the same concept of a pair of vehicles still applies. And the idea right now is that they'll use solar panels and a lot of batteries. And so if you've ever picked up a car battery, you'll know those things are very heavy. So one of the areas that we're trying to work with the US car industry actually is developing batteries that are lighter weight, that can store as much energy as possible with as little weight as possible, so that we don't have literally tons of batteries on each vehicle. But it's a great question, and solar power is the answer for right now.
Very cool. Okay, I have one more question for you. What are the suit ports and cabana used for?
That's a great question. So the suit ports are probably my favorite part of the vehicle. And that's an example of something that's very unique about this concept, where in the past, if astronauts want to go outside and do a spacewalk, they have to go through an airlock and do a long, what they call a pre-breathe, and it takes several hours actually to go outside. And so by the time you've spent several hours getting outside, you want to stay outside for a while, which is actually quite hard work, and it's very demanding. With the suit ports, what you do, you'll see that the spacesuit is actually attached to these suit ports, and then there's a door both on the back of the suit and another door that matches it on the vehicle itself. So the suit is tightly sealed to the vehicle. The astronaut on the inside opens the first hatch, then opens the suit, and then climbs in, and then closes those 2 doors behind him or her. And then the only air or the only gas that they have to lose is a tiny little amount between those 2 hatches. They dump that gas, and then they can, in 10 minutes, they are out walking around on the surface. So that's a really different way of getting out of your vehicle, a very unique feature of these vehicles. And what the cabana does, you'll see that the suit ports are covered by this cabana which goes up and down. And it's kind of like your garage door where, in the same way that you want to protect your nice shiny new car from the sun and temperature extremes and stuff like that and dirt, what the cabana does is protect the suits and the suit ports themselves from the dust, from the huge thermal variations you get, the extreme hot and extreme cold conditions, as well as micrometeorites, which are very fast-moving pieces of rock that can punch holes in your suits and stuff like that. So when the spacesuits aren't being used and they're attached to the suit ports, then we put the cabana down over them just to protect them.
Awesome. Well, I know you are very busy today on Mission Day 2, so thank you so much for coming and talking to our students today.
My pleasure.
Good luck, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Pleasure talking to you.
All right,
as always.
thank you.
Right.
Well, great. Well, let's find out a little bit more about the Triathlete, where Amanda got a chance to talk to their lead test engineer, Julie Townsend.
Thank you, Heather. Right now I have with me Julie Townsend. She is the test lead for Athlete. Athlete's been out here at the Desert Rats for about 4 years right now. So, Julie, can you tell us what's a little bit different this year as opposed to other years?
Well, this is our second year with the second generation Athlete vehicle, which is made out of 2 triathlete vehicles that can split. So the robot can split into 2 three-legged triathletes, and those carry this cargo pallet with the habitat on top of them.
So what type of specific modifications or upgrades have you guys made to this since last year?
Well, the Triathlete this year looks a lot like the Triathlete last year. Most of the modifications we've made have been making the vehicle stronger and more reliable for our 40 kilometers of driving this year.
So how many kilometers did you do last year?
Maybe 1 or 2. Last year, the Triathlete robot was an infant. We had just finished assembling both of the Triathletes. About 2 weeks before we came to the field test was the first time we mated them together into a 6-legged athlete, and we were doing all sorts of different demonstrations that didn't require us to drive long distances. We found when we tried to drive that our new design had a few little flaws in it, and so we spent this year chasing down all those flaws so that we can drive seamlessly at least 40 kilometers, probably more, over the course of the 2 weeks of this test.
So what is that black tarp back there?
Oh, well, the black tarp that the robot is carrying, that's a rain cover. Not something we really need for lunar operations, but here in Arizona, we have thunderstorms can crop up at any time. And so we've discovered last year with a vehicle that's this large, unfolding a tarp and trying to throw it over the top, not very realistic. So this year, Athlete's carrying its own rain covers. And all we have to do is set the robot down on the ground, and then we unfold that tarp over the legs and just strap it in place.
So I hear you guys are going to climb a fence this year.
Well, climbing is not quite the right terminology for that, but around here we're working on a ranch, and there are a lot of barbed wire fences to keep the cattle in one area or another. And the rovers have to cross, including Athlete, have to cross these fences at some point during their route. The advantage that Athlete has, being a legged vehicle, is it doesn't just have to drive. It can also has the capability to step over these fences. So in cases where it may be inconvenient for us to go through the fence or lay the fence down, we have another option. We can just step over the fence.
Thank you for providing all the updates for Athlete for us this year.
Anytime.
Heather, back to you.
All right, well, I understand that we have another question, and this is from Carlos from Anaheim, and it's how much can the Triathlete lift? Now, you saw in that video that it had a habitat structure, kind of a cylinder on top of the Athlete. The Athlete is a heavy lift cargo vehicle, so it can lift things that the astronauts are going to live in, like a habitat structure like what you just saw. So several hundred, if not maybe even thousands of pounds, because that's going to carry around our habitats, our equipment, our tools, our hardware, maybe even our rovers if they need to get around the surface quickly. Very good question, Carlos. All right, well, students, we have with us now Terry Tree, who is part of our Habitat Demonstration Unit team. Terry, how are you doing?
Doing great. Heather, how are you doing?
Very good. Now, Terry, you just heard me answer Carlos's question about the Athlete, how much it can lift, and I mentioned a habitat. So I understand that's what your team is here to check out and try out with your hardware, right?
That's right.
So tell me a little bit about what hardware we have out here in the desert.
Well, we have our habitat has basically a bunch of workstations on the inside that we do science and maintenance operations with. It has an airlock also.
Very cool. Now, you know, we also have the little volume on top of the robotic structure that Andrew just talked about, the space exploration vehicle. Why can't the crews just live in there forever and ever?
Well, they really need more space than that to do all the kind of operations that we do for future missions.
Okay, very good. So about how big is the pressurized excursion module that we have with us?
It's about 5 meters in diameter.
Okay,
And it's just 1 story tall right now.
very good.
But we might be adding on a 2nd story next year.
So how many people do you think could live in there comfortably?
It's designed for a crew of 4. I'm sure it could have a crew, like a changeover crew, during operations. So for short periods of time, you could have more people than that, maybe a crew of 8 in there.
And I understand that on mission day 7, our 2 rovers are actually going to dock or connect to the pressurized excursion module, and then what's going to happen?
Oh yeah, it's really going to be an exciting day. Yeah, they're going to come inside from their rovers, and they're going to exercise those various workstations that we have inside, do repairs, do some health monitoring, and most importantly, use the GeoLab that's inside.
And what is the GeoLab?
The GeoLab is a glove box that actually has 3 ports that penetrate the shell and go to the outside. So the rocks that they've collected during the whole mission up to that point, they can pass them in through those various pass-throughs and then study them on the inside with various instruments that they have.
Very cool. So we're about to take some questions, but first I have to ask you, how is it going for your team out here? You guys having a good mission? It's only mission day 2. We've got 12 more to go.
It's going great. We've been solving a few minor problems as we have, whenever we go out to the field. But our systems are up and running, and we're really looking forward to some independent testing, and then, of course, when the rovers come over on day 7.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, well, guess what? We're taking student questions live right now, and I just got one, and this is a good one.
Great.
How is the habitat that we have out here similar to our homes on Earth?
Okay, well, that's a good question. We have basically a shelter is what we have with the habitat. So it has air conditioning and lighting in it, and it has a place to plug things in for various equipment like a vacuum cleaner. It's simple and common as that's needed out here in the dusty environment. Also, we have a porch on the outside and a staircase and everything like that. So there's not a lot of real habitation that goes on in there. Not this year. Next year we're going to add an inflatable loft on the top of it.
Wow.
And that's where the people will sleep and be able to stay overnight in, rather than just living out of the rovers like they're doing now.
Well, we'll have to check that out next year for sure.
It'll be great.
I have another question. So you talked about, plugging in your equipment, your tools and vacuum cleaners. How are you going to power a habitat like this?
Okay, well, in the field here, just here on Earth, we're using diesel generators for most of the time, but we have some exciting other sources of energy that are coming up down the road here in a few days. We have solar energy and wind energy that's going to power the habitat for a while. When we actually go to the Moon and Mars, then we'll be using more solar systems there, possibly nuclear, and for some applications, fuel cells.
Very cool. Well, Terry, I cannot wait to see what happens on mission day 7 when we dock those 2 rovers and check out how the crew goes inside and works with the GeoLab. So I'm pumped. Are you pumped?
Oh, totally. We're really excited waiting for this to happen.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to our students today.
My pleasure.
And students are going to have to follow along and see what happens.
Yes.
So good luck with the mission. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Heather.
Awesome. All right, students. Well, I think we have time for just a few more questions. So let's see what I've got here. All right, I'm going to take this question right here. What do you like most about your job? Well, students, I'm a mechanical engineer and I work at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. That is one of the 10 NASA centers across the United States. And during my regular day job, when I'm not out here in the Arizona desert, I'm building life support equipment. You know, the backpack that the astronauts get to wear in space? I'm one of the engineers on a team of a lot of people building and designing that hardware. And what I like most about being an engineer for NASA is that I get to work with people just like Terry and Andrew, scientists, engineers, and of course our astronauts, figuring out how to make good technology that we're going to use for these future exploration missions. Every day is a new day with new challenges, and I'm never ever bored. So that's what engineering is all about. Figuring things out, testing them, breaking them in the desert, fixing them in the desert, fixing them in Antarctica or some other analog mission that we have with NASA's exploration mission exercises, and figuring out how to do things better. So that is an excellent question, and hopefully some of you in the audience are thinking about joining us on our future endeavors as an engineer, a scientist, maybe even an astronaut. All right, let's see. What other questions do we have? Oh, this is a very good one as well. You guys are sending in some good questions. So what do I need to do in school to get a job at NASA? Well, I can answer that one as well. I actually started at NASA when I was a student at Auburn University. So I decided I wanted to be a mechanical engineer, and then I found out that NASA had some student work programs such as internships and cooperative education. And so while I was going through school, I would alternate between work semesters and school semesters. So I'd stay in school, study hard, work the homework and the projects every single day, and then I'd go to NASA for the summer or the fall semester and work hands-on experiences, testing out spacesuit equipment, designing tools for the International Space Station, and working with NASA's team. And so that's one of the ways that you can get a job working with NASA. We have all sorts of careers out here. As you'll find when you get on our social media sites, you can look at our Desert Rats website and find out all about our mission team. You'll learn that we have various team members here from all of the different NASA centers, from industry, from various universities, all working together. So I bet if you're interested in any part of space exploration, whatever it is, you could figure out a way to get yourself to NASA. So remember, as you're looking into schools and universities, try to find out if they have some kind of a work-study program with NASA or one of NASA's many fantastic contractors. All right, we've got one more question, I believe. Okay, we've got a great question from Ruby, who would like to know if students are going to be able to name the rovers in the future. And that is something that we are definitely thinking about. We've often asked the public to help us out to name certain aspects of our missions. And so we'll take that into consideration, and maybe we'll even come to you and get that kind of a thing for one of our rovers. But I will tell you that a few weeks ago, we opened up our Traverse Paths live to the general public, and we asked you guys to help vote. Where do we want to go on one of our mission days? So NASA definitely wants you guys to get involved with our exploration missions, both here on Earth and out into space. So stay tuned and make sure you get to nasa.gov and keep in touch with what we're doing. And in fact, if you want to learn more about what we're doing out here, we're blogging daily. I'm on Twitter, as well as some of our crew members and some of our science and engineering team. So we're tweeting every single day. In fact, Amanda is out there right now with our 2 space exploration vehicles, so if you're not connected to us, you need to be. Follow along on our Twitter page. We've also got Facebook, so go to www.nasa.gov/desertrats, and you will find out so much all about our Desert Rats mission, and please do contact us. All right, let's see if we have any more questions here. Okay, this is a great one. Is NASA building other rovers and robots to be used on the lunar surface? That is a fantastic question. What you have seen out here today is just a small subset of all of the different hardware that's being built. So this is the hardware that was ready to take out to the Arizona desert to work for a 14-day traverse. But we've got teams all across the world working on building tools, equipment, and hardware and testing it out in their labs and facilities. And in fact, at Johnson Space Center, we have a simulated rock yard and Mars yard where we test things out almost every single day, taking these kinds of robotic assistants out, taking our crew members out in spacesuit technologies, and figuring out how it all works together. And in fact, behind me, you've been watching the Centaur 2, which is a robot we didn't even talk about yet. So this is a very cool robot. It can move, as you can see. And what we're going to do with this is another mobility agent that we've got, and we might be able to attach something like a Robonaut, a robot that looks almost like a human, that has hands and arms and a head and stereo cameras, and use that as an assistant to help us on our future missions. So that's a great question, and again, stay tuned for more about what NASA's doing. All right, we've got time for one more question. Okay, I've got a question from Valentine, who wants to know how long before we get to Mars. And you know what? That is the multi-million-dollar question, Valentine. So NASA was setting their sights on going back to the moon and then heading on to Mars, but now we're thinking we might go to something a little closer, like an asteroid or a near-Earth object. So I don't have an exact date for you, but it's going to be a while. It takes us a while to get there, and to prove out systems like what you've seen during our program today, it'll take us a couple of years, because while athletes working to step over those fences, and while our crew members and geologists are working hard here over this 14-day traverse, we still have a lot to learn before we feel comfortable and safe in sending our crew members and our hardware to a destination like Mars to live on the surface and work on the surface for days, weeks, maybe even months at a time. So I can't wait. I'm as excited as you are to see that happen. So you need to hurry up, go to school, study hard, and come join us and make it happen with us. Excellent question. All right, students, well, I think we're almost coming to the close of our program. I want to thank you all for coming to our webcast today, and especially those of you sitting in Education Alley. Thank you to Lisa Bacon for helping us to put this program together, and of course, Kimberly Land, who's there as well. If you would like to follow along with our mission, make sure you get online. We are, like I said, blogging, tweeting, Facebook updates, pictures, videos. We're on YouTube. Get online and check us out, and please do stay connected with us. If you go to www.nasa.gov/desertrats, DESERTRATS, you will get connected to all of our social media sites, and I would love to talk to you. So please get online, follow along. We've got more education webcasts happening with our NASA Edge crew coming next week, and all kinds of excellent things. So you want to stay connected with us because this is exciting, awesome stuff, and this is what future exploration is all about. So from Black Point Lava Flow in Arizona, this is Heather Paul saying thank you so much, students. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I do, and I will see you on the web. Take care. Bye-bye.